While attending public school for the first time, a 16-year-old joins and takes over a popular clique. Special guests Sue Winter and Karlen Trucke join us to chat about Taco Tuesday memes, DVDs that are popular with sick campers, and the difference between mathletes and academic league. You can't sit with us as we find out if 2004's Mean Girls stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Test of Time, where we talk about older movies and see, do they still stand up today? Do they stand the test of time? And joining me, as always, is our buddy and pal, the guy who puts this stuff all together and makes this perfect, medium rare, perfectly well done podcast that you're listening to right now, our director and co-host, Alan Noah.
Well, now I'm confused. Is it well done or is it medium rare?
Well, I mean, it depends on your desire at that moment. If you're kind of picking, chef's choice, how is the seared tuna supposed to be done? A medium rare.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not just us today. We have two very special guests. Coming back to the show is Sue Winter. Welcome back, Sue.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And we have a first-time guest joining us, Karlen Trucke. Hello, Karlen.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We have talked on social media. This is our first time chatting in real life or whatever this is. Zoom is real life now, I guess. I think that's fair to say. As we're talking about Mean Girls, it really kind of felt like if it was just James and I, sure, we could do it, but we really kind of needed some female perspective. So thank you. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk back to you in real time, because I spend a lot of time in my car saying, yeah, that's totally right. Or no, you guys didn't think about this thing. So so this will be fun.
I do a lot of that with podcasts too. And I would say you look weird in the car, but you don't, because everyone's doing that, right? Either they're talking to a podcast or they're talking on the phone. It's fine.
It's totally fine.
So, Karlen, let me ask you first, because you wanted to come on to talk about Mean Girls. Had you seen this movie before? What's your relationship with it?
Well, so I have a 23-year-old daughter, and I saw the movie with her back, well, she was probably too young when it came out, but when she was like 10, 12, probably 12.
The tween years.
Yeah. I remember liking it.
Okay, great. And Sue, you hadn't seen it before, right?
Yeah, it's just crazy, but somehow I missed this one. And my daughter had seen it. When I told her I was doing this and I was going to watch it and I'd never seen it before, she couldn't believe that. Because it's a classic. When I rented it, it said that the year it came out, I think, was 2004. So right. I had a 4-year-old, so I was probably doing a lot more Nemo and Little Mermaid and stuff when it came out. And then, I don't know, I just never saw it.
That's fair. I think, there are those kinds of movies that you just sort of miss if it's a teen movie and you have little kids, or it's a kids movie and you have teens or whatever. I had seen this movie with my daughter before, and I watched it again with her the other night, and I was like, do you want to watch it again? Because, sometimes, if she's seen it before, she'll just kind of be like, whatever. But she was interested in watching it one more time. James, had you seen Mean Girls before?
Yeah, I've seen this film a couple times. I did not see it in theaters. I knew it was a big hit. Tina Fey was really, she was really on fire at that time. That was one of those resurgences of Saturday Night Live that she was pretty much responsible for. After, 97 or something, when all the guys were fired, Adam Sandler and Chris Farley and Chris Rock, all the guys were fired in one season. They kind of puttered around, and, Tina Fey was so smart, and Weekend Update. I don't know, had 30 Rock come out yet in 2004?
I don't think so. I think That was a few years later, if I'm remembering right.
All right. I remember when it was coming out, I was actually kind of expecting it to be good. I didn't get to see it for a little bit. I think it was a Blockbuster rental. And then I saw it a couple times. I have a niece. I saw it with her, I think, at some point, or we talked about it. I'm a camp doctor, and when the kids are sick with a fever, they have to sleep over in the health center. And one of the privileges that they have, they can watch movies. And you know which movies are super popular by how destroyed the DVDs are and like how upset they are when they can't use them anymore. And Mean Girls is they get a new one like every summer.
Yeah, we used to rent a lot of DVDs for the kids at the library, and the kids' DVDs that you get from the library are awful. They are scratched to high hell. And all of the ones that my kids loved, especially Eli, he was really into Bob the Builder. He would be so mad if he knew I said that on the podcast. But all of the Bob the Builder DVDs would just skip because there were little kids who had them and their fingers are always sticky and covered in jelly. But James, why don't you give our listeners a recap of Mean Girls just in case anyone hasn't seen it?
Okay, Mean Girls is a movie about Katie Heron, also known as Caddy Heron, who had been homeschooled for most of her life because her parents had traveled around Africa. When the family settles down in Illinois, Katie enters public school for the first time. At first, Katie finds it hard and tough to meet new friends, but she soon meets Janice and Damien, who give Katie advice on who to stay away from. At the top of that list are the Plastics, a group of popular girls led by the charismatic but ruthless Regina George. When Regina takes a liking to Katie, Janice suggests that Katie joins the Plastics and take Regina down. But Katie discovers that she likes being popular and soon replaces Regina as the school's queen bee. In the end, Katie learns that she wants to be the kind of person she used to be and that there's plenty of popularity to go around.
Aw.
Yeah.
And this was a big hit. I know that this was a big hit for Tina Fey, for Lindsay Lohan. It was just a box office success, right, James?
Well, I mean, it did well. It had a $17 million budget, and it opened at number one on April 30th, 2004. And the movie it beat, it's a Denzel Washington movie from 2004. He's kind of a good guy killer, but he is pretty ruthless. And he will put a bomb anywhere he has to, anywhere in your body that he has to. Has anyone seen this movie?
It's not ringing a bell.
I mean, I'm imagining a lot of explosions, but I think a lot of Denzel Washington movies have explosions, so I guess I can't put my finger on it.
I don't know.
That one is Man on Fire. But number 3 that weekend was another movie that is incredibly popular with the scratched up DVDs over the summer. That's a Jennifer Garner film, 13 Going on 30.
Okay.
But the movie was $17 million budgeted. It winds up making $86 million domestically, $130 million worldwide. This is a huge hit.
All right, so because we have some women joining us today, and this movie is very female focused, let me ask you about if your experience with high school kind of mirrors what you saw in Mean Girls.
I think that there was definitely a hierarchy. I don't think that the people who were popular were necessarily ruthless and mean. I think that they all thought that they were perfectly nice and they just had their own silo. There were mean people, though, and those were just the people who were mean, so they weren't necessarily popular.
Okay. Sue, what about you?
This looked just like my high school.
Oh, really?
At least as far as I recall. Cliques. They introduced the tables with, those are the, these kids and whatever that was. Oh, absolutely. We had that. And we had rich kids and we had mean girls.
I'm going to take a leap here and say that you were not a mean girl.
I was not. No,
Okay.
I had really nice friends. But, that movie's 20 years old, but that really did look a lot like my high school from 20 years before that.
Okay. And because you both have daughters, was their experience kind of along these lines?
For sure. In fact, I think Melina would even say opposite of what I said, that the popular people were mean.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about in high school, but I know there was definitely a period during middle school where some of the girls, they definitely experimented with being mean.
Interesting. That's such an interesting phrase, that they experimented with it. I look at it from a very male perspective, and I don't want to make everything like overly gendered, but I feel like with boys, and I see this with my own son, it's more like, what do I like? Do I like baseball or basketball? It's more about like the things that they're into and less about like how to be, like kind versus mean. And my experience in high school, sure, there were bullies, sure, there were cliques, but like I wasn't worried about people being mean to me or saying nasty things about me. Everyone called me a nerd. I was a nerd. I knew I was a nerd. I didn't care. I was worried about people beating the shit out of me. Like that was the fear. It was a more physical kind of intimidation. So watching Mean Girls is kind of foreign to me, just in that it's not what I experienced. James, was it more kind of physical intimidation that you dealt with? Or you were cool, right? I'm sure.
Well, you knew me in college, right? That's right. And first of all, I have two sisters, and while I'm not going to speak for their experiences, I definitely found that middle school, maybe more than high school, middle school was definitely very different for girls than it was for boys, and definitely a cliquey thing. And I think I kind of got lucky in high school where my popular people, they weren't that bad. I guess it's like more like Karlen's high school, that there were some assholes, but some of the dorks were assholes too. It was the same mix.
Well, so let's get into the burn book, right? Because that is, I think, the one thing about this movie that kind of doesn't really stand the test of time. I mean, it's a book, it's analog, right? It's handwritten. And as a father, I'll say the catchphrase, my daughter is 10. The thing that scares me, the thing that keeps me up at night is like cyberbullying. People saying horrific shit online. It can be anonymous. And what do you do? That is really, really frightening. And I wonder if that will be in the new version, which we didn't mention, but we're talking about Mean Girls because there's a new musical version. I don't know, because that's based on the Broadway show. I never saw the Broadway show, but I wonder if that will play a role. But, just this idea of writing things down in a book, it almost seems quaint in a really weird way.
It could be that my daughter is anachronistic, but she does do all of the digital stuff, and I definitely worried about cyberbullying, but she also journals and keeps memorabilia and has things like that. So I think that they could add to it, but to me, the burn book is not, it still stands the test of time for young women, young girls.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see that too. And also, when you were talking about the connection between that and social media, actually, that scene where she makes all those copies and just throws them around the school, that is literally something going viral. I'm going to just say Tina Fey is kind of genius, because that's really kind of before all this viral social media. But that's exactly what happens when it all just explodes and everybody sees it and it's public. So it kind of is the same.
Kind of to that point, I don't want to be like defending the burn book here, but if it was just a book that was on Regina George's shelf and it was just for her and her closest friends, in a way, if that's like a personal journal diary kind of thing, that's not really bullying. That's kind of venting, and it's still angry and hateful, and you're just putting all of this hatred out into the world, which isn't necessarily healthy, but it's also not the worst thing in the world, right? If you're just kind of getting these mean thoughts down and sticking them on the shelf, well, yeah, there's a lot worse that a mean girl could do.
The thing that makes it mean, well, in addition to the sharing it, is the fact that they're doing it together. Because I
Right.
am 100% sure that I would be disturbed if I read the mean, horrible things that my daughter wrote in her journal in high school. But I think that that is actually healthy because you get it out of yourself and onto paper. And, I mean, I think that's a classic therapy technique, right? Just to get rid of it. What made it bad was that the four of them, or then the five of them, were working on this book together.
I agree 100%. If you find your daughter wrote, "This girl's so stupid and I hate her and she's ugly and she's just the worst," fine, whatever. That's your daughter's diary. But if you find like a little, recording that like five of your friends make, and they make a song about this girl, about how ugly and fat, and the same thing. They're definitely, when they're making it, giggling. I think it's almost a very big lesson you tell your kids today. Just kind of don't assume anything is private, because even if it is your diary, all it takes is someone going into your room, you throw a house party, and they just take a picture of your diary. They're not going to steal your diary. They flash it, and it's going to say, "You love this," or "You kissed this boy," or "You did something more with the boy," or "with the girl," or "with this," and you're going to write in your diary, and it's public, and it's forever.
That is very true. My son has told me to not have pictures of him in our house because his friends will come over, and if there's like a cute little baby picture we have on a wall, one of his friends will go over and take a picture of it, and they are just using it to give each other shit. It's not bullying, it's more just, boys being boys, I think, and I hope. But also, he goes over to their house and everyone has baby pictures around. Like, come on, like, I'm not gonna not have baby pictures of my kids in my house. But you're absolutely right, James, that is a thing. And I do tell them that nothing is ever private. And as you were sort of making those examples, James, about, I kissed a boy, there is a lot of talk in this movie about sluts and skanks, and they really throw those words around a lot. And I thought maybe they would address that more. Like, Tina Fey's character kind of says it at one point, like when they have that big assembly of, don't call each other sluts and skanks, because then you're just allowing boys to call you sluts and skanks. I appreciated that point. I think that maybe more so today than in 2004, there's more of like this awareness of slut shaming as a bad thing, because in the movie, people aren't overly promiscuous. The Amanda Seyfried character is the more promiscuous one, I guess, but she's not like having lots of sex or anything like that.
That was actually kind of a thread that ran through the whole movie, was that whole like sexuality part of it. I think that's just part of being in high school, right? Just being that age. I mean, there's the side story about, her friend who's gay, and then, is this other girl a lesbian or not? And then who's sleeping with who, and, who broke up with their boyfriend. And like, I think a lot of that is pretty true to being that age. I mean, that's just probably the main thing a 16-year-old's thinking about.
Right.
So they're saying it out loud.
Well, and they're all thinking that everybody else is doing it too. So it's like,
right.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the reason, or it could be part of the reason that it's not shown on screen, is it's all rumors. Everybody's a slut, but maybe none of it's happening, maybe all of it's happening, but we don't know.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because in the gossip mill or whatever, yeah, everyone's having sex with everyone. In reality, yeah, maybe it's like a handful of kids who are. There's no like confirmation in the movie that anyone is having sex, right? I don't think.
Except the gym teacher.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Which, it's not funny, but like it's kind of played off for a joke that the gym teacher is having these relationships with two students. And I don't know a ton about the new version, but I did see that John Hamm plays Coach Carr, and he's like second build, third build, and he's friends with Tina Fey, and he's very, very funny. I'm assuming that they're making that character a bigger deal now. I don't really know why. I don't think anyone watched this movie in 2004 was like, I want to see more of that coach. What's his story?
Yeah, I actually made a note of that in kind of my test of time, things. I was like,
Sure.
I don't know if that's a safe thing to joke about these days, that an
Right.
adult coach would be fooling around with a teenage student. Like, I don't know if people would find that funny or just creepy.
Right.
I don't know if people were talking about it in 2004 as much, but it does seem like if you were creating Mean Girls today, you probably wouldn't start with that joke.
So the message of this movie, if you're going to get into it, is the power struggle that these girls have trying to be themselves in the world that they find themselves in. And so if you have this other storyline where a man is making out with one of the girls, it can subvert that message, So, but on the other hand, it might reinforce it. So it's kind of stood out to me, but also I'm a mom. I have a different perspective on this stuff than, a lot of people watching the movie probably would, because I can't help but see my daughter and her friends in the movie, and I also see myself and my friends in the movie too,
It's not really about Coach Carr. It's the setup so that the two girls can be against each other because they were both going after the same thing. So it is an icky premise, but the joke was really, again, coming back to that girl on girl meanness and that they started fighting with each other.
Right.
It's another version of the Aaron Samuels thing where you can't like someone who your friend likes. It's just a perverse version of that. And the Aaron obsession thing, I like that it is not the main focus of the movie. It kind of drives the plot, but it's not a movie just about will Katie and Aaron hook up. That's not the movie that Tina Fey was writing. I think that would be less interesting to me personally. And every October 3rd, there's the memes that go around of on October 3rd, he asked me what day it is. It's on October 3rd. Why has that line become a thing that happens every year on social media? I don't know. That's just the world we live in.
That segues into one of the things that I thought was really interesting. How many memes have come from this one movie alone? So
Sure.
many things on social media. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. I see it everywhere.
It's like Taco Tuesday. It just comes up every single week. Someone's going to write that.
Oh, one of my favorite memes is stop trying to make blank happen. It's not going to happen. And then they just fill in, what that is. I recently stopped trying to make threads happen. It's not going to happen. But on a different topic, who I love in this film? And it turns out this guy was the replacement of the replacement of several down the line. Tim Meadows. He is so funny. His line at the very end when Katie, she's the prom queen. She's like, everyone, I just want us to all, and he taps her to you're not really supposed to make a speech at this thing. It's such a takedown of every single high school movie and also just a Tim Meadows classic delivery. It was apparently supposed to be Steve Martin first, but he was filming Cheaper by the Dozen. But Tim Meadows knocked it out of the park. Apparently, he really broke his arm before filming. So they just quickly, the first day, how was your summer? I got divorced. How about you? I got carpal tunnel syndrome. That's why he has this huge cast on.
Oh my God, that's
stupid
so clever.
and funny.
Tim Meadows definitely has, I think, one of the funniest lines in the whole movie when he says, I will keep you here all night if I have to. And then the other teacher's like, no, you can't keep them past 4. I will keep you till 4 if I have to. That gets me every time. Anna Gasteyer, I think, is completely wasted in this movie. I say that as a huge Anna Gasteyer fan. I think she is one of the most underrated SNL cast members ever. Her Celine Dion impression and her topless Martha Stewart always got me. They were so funny. She was in so many funny bits. She does not have a joke in this movie at all. that kind of bums me out.
I don't think that Katie's mom and dad need to be funny, though, to be fair. Neil
Sure.
Flynn plays the dad. Yeah, they came from Africa, but I'm glad they actually didn't make them weird, like homeschool parents. They kind of made it a point that she's homeschooled, but don't worry, she's gonna fit in after adjusting a little bit.
And Tim Meadows is in the new version as well. He and Tina Fey are doing the same roles again. She's the math teacher, he's the principal. I guess because why not?
Yeah.
Well, in the Mean Girls-averse, there is also a notorious direct-to-DVD sequel. I didn't see it, but apparently Tim Meadows is still the principal. So he is, I guess, in all three.
He's the constant.
Yes, he is he is the constant.
Well, while we're talking about the cast, we should talk about Lindsay Lohan, who is really, really good in this movie. She is just an amazing actor, and she doesn't really do much anymore. There was that Christmas movie from, I think it was 2022. I didn't see. I heard it was really, really bad. And my sister-in-law said that it was so bad, it was funny. And I was like, oh, okay, we should watch it and, have some wine and make fun of it. And we never did that. But my wife, Courtney, said that she did put it on one day and it was just bad, not like so bad it's good, just awful. And she turned it off after a few minutes. But she really doesn't do much anymore. And after watching Mean Girls, I was like, why? She's got talent.
Well, I didn't look it up, but wasn't Mean Girls kind of the peak of her? Like she did Freaky Friday, she did a couple of other things that were really fun. And then I thought that she kind of went into drugs and got out of the business for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't not only the peak, this was the thing that propelled her to the stratosphere. This was Lindsay Lohan, not just the Freaky Friday girl and the girl from the Herbie. No, Herbie was later. Sorry, what was her kid movie?
Parent Trap.
Parent Trap,
Yeah.
that's it. Yes, it's a Parent Trap. Like, yeah, she was great in those things, but you never know with these child actors. And, she turned out to actually be very good. She's a very good actor. Yeah, she did all these drugs, and I guess it was maybe not so great on sets, or who knows. But I still think that the story isn't over for her. I just think she's so talented and so likable in this film. And I've seen Freaky Friday. I don't think I've ever seen Parent Trap, but I still think she could come back. But she's not getting any blockbusters anytime soon.
So I worked at VH1 when this movie came out in 2004. And at that time, VH1 was not really focused on music. It was more about pop culture and celebrity and kind of like in that sort of vein. And there was this appetite for, hey, look at her, look at what she's doing, because she was a young starlet and because, like you said, James, she went from child actor to actor. Also, she was hanging out with Britney Spears and Paris Hilton, and the tabloids were following all of them. Also, it didn't help that she released an album. I think that kind of made her more in that sort of pop culture vein. Everyone wanted to know everything about her. The second she turned 18, she was dating Wilmer Valderrama, and, that led to more attention. And it does kind of even play into the themes of Mean Girls, right? That, like, she was this sweet ingenue who all of a sudden became the popular person and everyone was looking at her. And then when she was fighting with Paris Hilton, that was big news because they're friends. Are they friends? Are they enemies? Are they frenemies? Her real life kind of mirrored what was happening in this movie. And it's funny and entertaining when it's Katie, the fictional character, and less funny and entertaining when it's a real life human being.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of the reason they cast her in this movie, because of that kind of symmetry.
I wonder, and I don't know if it was life imitating art or art imitating life or both or whatever. Rachel McAdams has been fine. She didn't go through any of that tabloid paparazzi nonsense. She's had a great career.
Academy Award winner Amanda Seyfried, right? Or was she just nominated?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought she was nominated.
Maybe. She was so good in the show on Hulu about the Theranos woman. What was the name of that show?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember. She was really good. I love that. That was really entertaining.
I have a question for you, Alan.
Yeah.
What do you think about the voiceover narrator on this movie?
Right. I didn't love it. I did think that it kind of helps in the beginning with the exposition of the homeschooling and, setting the stage. There were parts of it later on where I was kind of like, yeah, we get it. We don't really need it. It's sort of used for gag sometimes, where Tina Fey's character is like, is there anything you would like to say to confess, Katie? And the voiceover says, yes, I feel terrible. But then she says, nope, nothing. Do you need that? I would say no. It's not my favorite. It's not awful. It's not really telling you things that you really don't need, in the way that really annoys me. I don't know how to grade it. Maybe just it's fine, I guess. I'll give it a pass because I like Tina Fey as a screenwriter, so I feel like I can't wag my little finger at her from my little podcaster basement, so it gets a pass.
Yeah, but related to that was the whole jungle safari aspect of that voiceover.
Yeah.
I could see why they brought it in, because she lived in Africa for a while, and it was like the comparison to how she grew up. But it did feel a little out of place to me. I didn't hate it, but it also kind of stuck out when the couple of times it happened. I don't know if they needed to do it more or just cut it out entirely.
Well, what stuck out at you, the voiceover or the metaphor of the animal kingdom?
Well, the metaphor of the animal kingdom came out as part of her voiceover, so it wasn't every time she did a voiceover, but when it came out, she was definitely doing the voiceover.
Got it. Okay. I kind of forgot about that aspect of the movie, and when the burn book goes public and everyone is fighting, I was like, oh, it's sort of like what she would have experienced in Africa in the wild, and then she says it in voiceover, and I was like, oh, okay, well, now you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. I think most people would have gotten it without that. It does kind of give it that kind of nature documentary sort of vibe. That had to have been intentional.
I think it's okay from my perspective, because I think the whole movie is told from Katie's perspective. That's why the parents are kind of totally not important in this film, because she loves her parents, fine, but they're not important here. And those animal sounds, while a little cartoonish and silly, and it's definitely a director or editorial choice that they put that in, because they didn't need it. But they made the decision to make some reference to her being from Africa, because look, she has to be from somewhere that's not America. High school in Missouri is going to be like this too, but it can't be like, oh, I'm from England, because then you have to talk about her being from England. So they just kind of made her American, but she's in Africa, and then they never once reference Africa without being pedantic about it. And that's how she's able to solve the puzzle at the end of the mathletes, because she remembers this African proverb. I think that would be a little silly. So they give it this little, the girls of an American high school are just like the Savannah of Africa.
Well, and I guess related to that, as far as sound goes, because you mentioned the jungle sounds and stuff, I thought the soundtrack just was so spot on. The songs that they chose for the different aspects, it was really entertaining.
Totally agree. And I like that there's kind of two Blondie songs on there. There's One Way or Another, and then there's the cover of Rip Her to Shreds, which I really like. And also a track from Samantha Ronson, who later she and Lindsay Lohan dated in real life. Just kind of a coincidence, I guess. But yes, I agree that it is a great soundtrack.
I agree. And what you're saying about how it's told from Katie's perspective, that makes sense to me, because, see, I've only seen this movie one time now, and I've been thinking about it for 4 days since I watched it.
Nice.
But One of the things that I kind of realized later after watching it and thinking about it was that scene where the burn book, all the pages go out and then the school just goes crazy. Like, it was actually not until later in the movie that I realized only the girls were fighting.
Yeah.
It was when they rounded them up into the gym. And, when Tina Fey's like, all the junior girls go in the gym. And I was like, that's weird. And then I realized that's because, at least in the way this story is told, no one else is affected by this. It's only this group of girls that are in this same class. And I was like, that is pretty brilliant, because I think the point was whether you are the most like quiet as a mouse, socially inept person who doesn't even talk to anyone, or you are the most popular girl in that class, every single girl in a high school class is affecting every other one, and then it just exploded. But the thing that just was kind of blowing my mind was that I didn't even catch that until, they rounded them all up.
Yeah, because you hear high school fight and your brain just kind of defaults to boys punching each other. And that is not what this scene is at all.
You see this pandemonium, like all the doors to the classrooms all open and it just goes nuts. And it just seems like the whole school is involved in this melee, and it's like, no, everybody else is off doing something else. They're not even part of it.
Right. And it's funny that you say that, Sue, that like you kind of didn't even realize it and you only saw this movie once. Having just watched it again, there were definitely things that I picked up on repeat viewing. There's some foreshadowing about getting hit by a bus. She says, I think it's a line in VO, like when she first meets Aaron and he's so dreamy. It's like, I felt like I'd been hit by a bus because he was so cute or something like that. I'm sure it's a better line, but I was like, that's foreshadowing. I didn't catch that the first time. I bet if you watch it again, there will just be more things that will kind of leap out at you. Was anyone else a mathlete? Am I the only one here who was a mathlete?
Yeah, I was in we had an academic league. That's what it was called. And it was the quiz bowl. And you hit the thing and you had to answer. Sometimes it was math. Sometimes if it was an astronomy question, don't fucking answer. I'm answering that question.
I don't know if I'm going to count that, though. I don't know if that counts as just being on the math team.
No, we also had math league. But like it wasn't called mathletes. And like we didn't do anything like this. It was like something really stupid. We would kind of like take a test. It was really stupid.
Sue, Karlen, were you mathletes?
I don't remember that it existed because I was a really good math student. It could have been something I would have done.
I don't think they had that in the 80s. We just had regular, old school sports.
Okay. Fair. I was definitely a mathlete. My buddy Steve, who I know listens to the show, was on the team. I'm pretty sure we had a couple of girls on the team as well. And, that's a thing in the movie that they're all just so desperate to have a girl be on mathletes. It also makes me think of Freaks and Geeks, which was on the air a few years before this movie came out. And they said the word mathlete a lot in that show. I just find it endearing because I have fond memories of my mathlete days.
I actually think I quit very shortly after. I think I went to like one or two things of math league because it was literally you had to just take a test, a math test. It wasn't even a competition like this thing. Like academically, we would go to other high schools and we'd have to hit the buzzers and it was times and there was rounds and more scores than final ones. And sometimes it was math and that was fine. But oh God, Al, you just like taking extra tests after school of math?
Well, yeah, but it was a contest. It was like you took the test and then your team was graded and then, it was a contest to see which team had the best score.
Did you get a cool jacket?
No, there was no jacket. That would have been way cooler.
I was a math major in college, so I was one of maybe one or two girls in the math classes. So I had that experience. It just wasn't a mathlete thing.
Yeah, and I think what Tina Fey was going for in the screenplays, I think she's taking a dig at these boys basically being sexist, and they're going after this stereotype of girls being bad at math, because the rules were you get to pick the other team's candidate. So they don't even care. They're like, we pick the girl too. And
Yeah,
it's definitely Tina Fey, because Tina Fey she's very intelligent. I'm sure she was in places where they thought she must be dumb at math. That's my guess. I have nothing to back that up.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think Tina Fey is probably almost exactly the same age as Karlen and I. And she wrote this story, so that goes to show you that she didn't hear this from, somebody who was 16 when she was 35. She experienced these things herself.
Right. And the movie is based on a book called Queen Bees and Wannabes, which isn't a story. It's like a parental guide of how to deal with your teenage daughter. Really? And then she was like, oh, that could be a good movie. They optioned it, and it has, the credit based on this book, but it's a different kind of adaptation. Usually it's a novel that is adapted to a screenplay, not like a parental how-to guide.
Right.
I wonder how many people bought that book thinking, oh, the original novelization of Mean Girls. What the hell is this?
I didn't buy it, but I do think that I tried to read it because as a parent, the whole idea of high school scared me. In our area, there are 2 high schools that my daughter could have gone to, and the one she did end up going to that's closer to our home was known to be like the mean girl school. And
Oh, no.
people didn't call it that, but it was definitely known to be a really hard school for girls to go to. So I wanted to try to prepare to help her through that, but I don't think there's any way that you can.
Mm-mm.
Okay, I was just going to say, was the book helpful?
No, I don't even remember it. I just know I got it from the library.
Oh, no. Was Mean Girls more helpful in dealing with this stuff?
It was more entertaining for sure.
Okay, all right.
I mean, because they both just basically describe the situation, and there really isn't a solution except for to be there and be supportive for your child.
Okay. I was hoping there was going to be a quick fix.
Nope.
Damn it.
You're in for a ride.
I am. It's her last year in elementary school. Next year she goes to middle school. I'm already terrified. But we won't talk about that. We'll save that for another day. Let me ask you if you think that Mean Girls stands the test of time. Karlen, you're a first-time guest. Why don't you go first?
Okay, I think it does stand the test of time. I invited my daughter to watch it with me because she was home and she was enthusiastic about watching it. We sat down and laughed and had a great time. A couple of things like what Sue mentioned about the coach were a little troublesome. So, not perfect, but I even commented to my daughter while we were watching it, I thought the clothes were still cute. Like everything stood up for me.
All right, great. Sue, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't even think you really have to change hardly anything. I almost texted my 16-year-old niece just to ask her, because I'm sure she's seen it too. I just think, unfortunately, it does stand the test of time. I mean, I would have hoped that a 16-year-old today wouldn't still have to deal with what girls have in their life growing up through their teenage years. But that's just how it is, at least in American society. So yes, it does, and it handles it all with real humor. And I thought Lindsay Lohan was so convincing, and like just her going from that ingenue into that horrible person she turned into. And from the very first moment she came on screen with her parents, and they were like, "Oh, it's your first day at school," I just had this cringy feeling of like, oh no, I know what's going to happen.
Right.
But on the other hand, the way the story was told and the twist at the end with the burn book and all that stuff, I didn't see that coming. That's the other reason I think it stands up, is because it's a tale as old as time, but it is told in a very fresh way. And so, yes, absolutely.
Okay. James, what about you? What do you think?
I think this movie completely stands the test of time. And I've never been a teenage girl, but one thing that I completely relate with Katie on, I've discussed this on this podcast before, was the first day of school. I was brand new in ninth grade. I didn't know anyone. I didn't go to the junior high school that everyone else went to. And I was walking around. I just circled for like 10, 15 minutes. And I remember thinking, maybe I'll go to the bathroom and just like sit and eat. And when I saw that years later, it totally brought back memories of that moment. I did wind up after like 10, 15 minutes seeing someone I knew from years earlier. And I'm like, oh my God. And I sat with him. Thank goodness. But the movie is just, it's funny and it's so clever. Unlike a movie like Clueless that had a lot of gags about, oh, she's using her computer to pick her clothes out, and they look horribly outdated. The gag doesn't even hit anymore. The film doesn't do anything with cell phones much. There's some really clever lines in this film that I like. There's this line that Gretchen says when Katie says she's interested in Aaron, and she goes, dating a friend's ex is forbidden. That's like the rules of feminism. I know what she's trying to say. She's trying to say it's girl code, but she thinks feminism means girl, she thinks it's an umbrella. It's a great line there. Just some of Regina George's takedowns, that whole thing. Oh, wow, you're pretty. Thank you. So you agree that you're pretty. It's just, she doesn't even say anything bad. She's just telling her what you said. The three-way calling ambush that she does. She puts herself in the burn book. I just think Regina George is so smart. Janice, played by Lizzie Kaplan, everyone calls her a lesbian the entire film. And at the very end, you find out she's Lebanese. And everyone's just mishearing it. And, oh, she's Lebanese. Oh, she's a lesbian. I didn't catch that on earlier viewings. Lindsay Lohan, I do think, again, she has the talent, and I think she could make a comeback. So the jury's out on whether she stands the test of time, but she could. The one thing in this film that doesn't stand the test of time is Coach Carr. Overall, this movie is so funny. I've never seen the musical on Broadway, so I don't know what the musical is like. Apparently, it was very well liked, so this could be a really popular musical. But only talking about the 2004 film, it definitely stands the test of time. Finally, Al, 3 for 3. Is it a four-peat? Is it a perfect 4 for 4?
Yes, it is. I completely agree. It stands the test of time. I do think you're wrong, though, James, about Coach Carr being the only thing in the movie that doesn't stand the test of time. At the Christmas show, when they're doing their song and dance and everything goes awry, that happens because of the CD player. That is what ruins their performance. And then, Katie saves it. My daughter is performing in the school's variety show, and I have to give them the song digitally. No one uses a CD player. So that doesn't stand the test of time. I had in my notes that they make a reference to Sears. No, I think that the themes of the movie are still totally relevant. I like the lesson. I really like how Lindsay Lohan plays the character. I like her arc from ingenue to horrible person back to an ingenue at the end, when she's taking apart the tiara and giving it to everybody. It's like, oh, right, I did like her. She's back again. I did think that scene was a little on the nose again with, her breaking up the plastic tiara. It's just plastic, and that's the name of the clique, is the plastics. But whatever. It's a really sweet ending. And it's a sweet story. It's really funny. It's really entertaining. Of course, it stands the test of time. I'm not sure how this new version is going to do. James, I know you don't watch movie trailers as a general rule, but did you guys see the trailer for the new movie?
Mm-mm.
It's a musical, and there's no music in it. Like, I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, I must have made a mistake. I thought this was a musical version of Mean Girls, but I guess not. And no, it is, but they didn't show a single song. It's just like, this isn't your mom's Mean Girls. And that also kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's only 20 years later, but like, it's just them doing the bits and the lines that you know from the original and no song. So I guess they didn't have a ton of confidence in it.
No, my daughter told me that apparently there's a thing right now that people loathe musicals. It's not just Mean Girls. There's another musical that's come out recently, and I don't remember what it was, but she told me that they also did their trailer without any music. So people are going to these movies and then they get in there and they find out it's a musical and they're getting PO'd.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
That's really funny. I guess that works for the studio and not the poor people who work at the movie theater who have to like decide if they're giving refunds or not. I did see that the movie was originally going to be a direct to Paramount Plus streaming thing, and then they decided to put it in theaters. So I guess there was some confidence that it could make money, but it is a little bit weird that they're hiding the fact that it's a musical when that was the whole reason to make the movie in the first place, right? It's like the producer's thing. It's the movie version of the musical version of the movie version.
Well, I haven't kept up on it, but I thought that I saw that their subsequent trailers were starting to include the music because the backlash from this other movie, they didn't want to end up in the same position.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I also think that they should have more faith in their Mean Girls fandom.
Exactly. And the musical was nominated for a ton of Tonys. I saw that it didn't win any. The composer is Jeff Richmond, who does a lot of the musical work on Tina Fey's projects because he's her husband. He did the music for 30 Rock and Kimmy Schmidt and a lot of things.
It was the Willy Wonka movie that was the one with the backlash. People didn't know it was a musical and they got angry.
All Wonka films are musicals, though, right?
Yeah.
The new one is more of a musical than the original.
Oh, it's not just like it has 5 musical numbers. It's more like actually like a Broadway musical.
Yeah, there's a lot more singing.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is totally fair because I went and saw that movie with my daughter and I was like, oh, wait, this is a musical? I had no idea. So I didn't complain and ask for my money back. But are you guys planning to go and see the new Mean Girls?
I think I will.
I'll probably wait till it comes on streaming. But that's how I watch movies anyway. Fair
point. James, I'm guessing you're not rushing to the theater for it?
I will go with you, Al, if we sit 7th row center and just scream and just sing along the entire time.
That would be weird. That would be very, very weird for two dudes in their mid-40s to do that. I think authorities would be called.
I just don't know any of the songs, too, so I don't know how I'll really scream any of the things, but I figure I'll listen to it on the way to the theater, and maybe I'll remember some of the words.
Okay, you get the tickets. I'll meet you there, all right? And if I get there late, just start with the plan. Start screaming. Just know I'm coming really soon.
Okay.
Well, Karlen, Sue, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. This was really fun. And I'm really glad that you joined us. Thank you.
This was super fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And so fun for the 4 of us to get to talk about this.
Yeah, definitely. Karlen, did you say this was your first podcast ever?
Uh-huh.
Way to go. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Did great.
Thanks.
I see more in your future. Either coming back on the test of time or whatever. I think you've got a knack.
I would love to.
Would you say that Karlen's podcast future will stand the test of time, Al?
I think so. Sue, do you want to give a plug to Go Informed?
Sure. I mean, geez, I have to give a slow clap to that comment James just made. Thanks again for having me on. I'm at 3 times now, so 2 more times before I get that hoodie.
That's right. That's right. You're getting close.
Yeah, so I am not very active with podcasting these days, but you can listen to the archives of my show, which is called Go Informed: Build a Better Vacation. And it is theme park tips for your trip to Disney and Universal parks. And you can also check out my website at goinformed.net, which is theme parks and other travel tips and stuff like that.
Yes. And one, please do more podcasts. I miss it. Two, great use of saying the word colon. Love that. That was spot on. And your newsletter is super helpful, and everyone should read it, especially if you're going to Disney or Universal. It's just chock full of important, helpful tips. So definitely subscribe.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us, and we'll have to do this again.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
That's going to do it for us this week. Come back next week when we talk about Cool World, the half-animated, half-live-action movie. I saw that once. James, have you ever seen that movie?
I have never seen this film. I was never planning on seeing it, but, let's podcast it up and see this film. It's Brad Pitt, right?
Yes, Brad Pitt is in that movie. That will be a fun one. Until then, we want to hear from you guys. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads. Let us know what your high school experience was like. Did you get bullied by mean girls? Were you a mean girl? It's a safe space. You can tell us. You can confess your sins. It's all right. And we will see you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.